Hello, and welcome to the Brit Tales. I'm so glad you're here today because we have a very special story to share. It's a cheerful, heartwarming tale about two twins and one unforgettable day, their 21st birthday. This is a beginner-level British English story, so it's perfect if you're learning English and want to enjoy a fun, easy, to follow celebration with lots of new words and phrases. In this story, you'll join the twins from the moment they wake up, excited for the big day ahead. You'll follow them as they choose their outfits, get ready, and see their garden fill with friends and family. You'll imagine the colorful buffet table, taste the cupcakes, and hear the laughter as the party comes alive. And just when you think it couldn't get more magical, you'll be surprised by fireworks lighting up the night sky. At the very end, you'll share in a sweet tradition, making a wish and cutting the big birthday cake together. Every part of this story will help you practice your listening, build your vocabulary, and experience British celebrations in a way that feels real and joyful. So, sit back, relax, and let's step into the garden, where the celebration is just about to begin. I opened my eyes to the soft light of morning streaming through the curtains, and for a moment I just lay there, listening to the gentle hum of the world outside. Today felt different. There was a strange mix of excitement and calm inside me, almost like my heart already knew this day was special before my mind even caught up. I glanced over at the other bed in the room and saw the same sleepy smile looking back at me. Without saying a word, we both knew. We were thinking about the same thing. Our 21st birthday had finally arrived. The room seemed brighter than usual, as if the sunlight itself was here to celebrate with us. I could feel the familiar warmth of home, the scent of fresh laundry from the clothes we'd carefully picked out the night before, and somewhere faint in the background, the smell of breakfast being made. It wasn't just another morning. It was the start of something we'd waited years for. We both sat up, the excitement impossible to hide now, talking over each other about the day ahead. What would the garden look like when it was all decorated? Who would arrive first? Would the cake taste as amazing as it looked in the photos we'd seen? These little questions made the morning feel alive with possibility. Stretching and shaking off the last bits of sleep, we took turns looking out the window. The sky was clear, with just a few clouds drifting lazily by. It felt like even the weather had been invited to our celebration and had decided to be kind to us for the day. Somewhere in the distance, I could hear a car starting, a dog barking, and the quiet rhythm of the town waking up. But in our small corner of the world, time seemed to be moving just for us. I thought back to all the birthdays we'd had before. Cakes with candles we could barely blow out, tiny party hats that never stayed on our heads, silly little presents we thought were the best things in the world. Those moments had been wonderful, but this birthday felt different. We weren't just celebrating another year, we were stepping into something new, something bigger. We started to talk about what it meant to be 21. It wasn't just a number, it felt like a door opening. There was a sense of independence, of adventures waiting just beyond the horizon. At the same time, there was comfort in knowing that whatever came next, we'd always have each other, just like we always had. That thought made me smile. As we got up from the bed, the excitement grew even stronger. I could almost picture the laughter that would fill the air later, the clinking of glasses, the rustle of wrapping paper, the cheerful greetings from friends and family we hadn't seen in months. This was the kind of day that didn't come often, the kind you remembered for years after. Every little detail of the morning seemed sharper, more vivid. The soft feel of the slippers against my feet, the way the floor creaked in certain spots, the faint sound of music playing from another room. Even the cool breeze from the open window felt like it was carrying whispers of celebration, like the whole day had been carefully wrapped up and handed to us as a gift. We shared one last look before heading to start the day, and I could feel that unspoken connection we'd always had. We didn't need to say anything more. The sparkle in our eyes said it all. Today was ours, and it was going to be unforgettable. This was the beginning of the celebration we had been waiting for all year. We moved from the cozy warmth of the bedroom into the part of the morning where everything began to feel real. The day was no longer just an idea. It was happening right in front of us. The first thing we did was open the wardrobe doors, revealing the outfits we had been carefully planning for weeks. They hung there like little pieces of the celebration itself, waiting to be brought to life. I ran my fingers along the soft fabrics, imagining how each dress would look under the string lights later in the evening. It wasn't just about clothes, it was about the feeling they gave us, confidence, excitement, and the sense that today we would shine. We tried different combinations, holding up one outfit and then swapping it for another, laughing when we both reached for the same one at the same time. There was something about this part of the morning that felt like a ritual. We weren't just getting dressed. We were preparing for memories we hadn't even made yet. Each choice felt important, from the color of the shoes to the way a necklace caught the light. We twirled in front of the mirror, checking the way the fabric moved, deciding whether it matched the mood of the day. Once the outfits were decided, the focus turned to our hair. Brushes, combs, clips, and sprays were scattered across the table like tools in an artist's studio. I could hear the quiet sound of bristles moving through hair, the soft clicks of pins being secured, and the occasional burst of hairspray that filled the air with its sharp but familiar scent. It was almost meditative, watching the transformation happen slowly in the mirror. Each strand found its place, each curl or wave shaped with care. We took turns helping each other, adjusting a loose strand here, smoothing out a section there. It wasn't just about appearance. It was about sharing in the moment, the way small acts of care have always been part of our lives together. Every adjustment came with a smile or a small laugh, sometimes at nothing in particular, just the joy of being here on this day. The room was filled with a quiet energy, not rushed but not slow either, like the morning was letting us savor it before everything became louder and busier. Music played faintly in the background, a soft melody that seemed to set the rhythm for our preparations. Outside the window, the breeze moved the curtains gently, carrying in the faint smell of flowers from the garden where the celebration would later take place. There was a moment when I caught my reflection and saw not just the outfit or the hair, but the anticipation in my own eyes. It was the same look I saw mirrored across from me. This was the face of someone about to step into a day they'd been imagining for months, someone about to create moments they would replay in their mind long after the last guest had gone home. When we were finally ready, there was this quiet pause, not because we doubted anything, but because we knew the next time we stepped out, everything would begin. All the little details, the clothes, the hair, the careful choices, were not just about looking nice. They were about feeling ready to welcome the day with open arms, and in that moment I knew the celebration had already begun. By the time we stepped outside, the garden had already transformed into something magical. The air felt lighter, filled with the scent of fresh flowers and the faint sweetness of the frosting from the cake table. Everywhere I looked there were splashes of color, bright balloons swaying gently in the breeze, streamers fluttering from the branches, and little tables dressed in crisp cloths, each with a small vase of blossoms in the center. It didn't just look like a celebration, it felt like it was breathing happiness into every corner. The music floated softly through the air, the kind that made people sway a little without even realizing it. It was the perfect soundtrack for the afternoon, cheerful enough to lift the energy, but not so loud that it drowned out the laughter and conversation. I could hear the clinking of glasses, the rustle of wrapping paper being opened somewhere nearby, and the occasional burst of applause when someone told a funny story or shared a memory. Friends began arriving in twos and threes, each one carrying a smile and often a small gift wrapped in shiny paper. Their footsteps crunched softly over the grass as they made their way in, and every new face brought with it a fresh wave of warmth. There were hugs, quick kisses on the cheek, and those happy little gasps when someone spotted a friend they hadn't seen in far too long. It was a mix of voices, some familiar and others belonging to friends, of friends who would, by the end of the night, feel like part of the family. Family members were scattered around the garden, chatting in small groups. Some stood near the buffet table, holding plates filled with colorful sandwiches, tiny pastries, and slices of fruit. Others settled into the chairs arranged under a big canopy that shielded them from the afternoon sun. I could see children chasing each other between the tables, their laughter ringing out like little bells, weaving through the steady hum of conversation. The decorations seemed to blend effortlessly with the natural beauty of the garden. Balloons in shades of gold, white, and soft pink danced in the wind, their ribbons catching the sunlight. Lanterns hung from the branches, ready to glow later when the sun began to set. There was something about seeing this space, where we had spent so many quiet afternoons, now alive with color and sound, that made my heart swell. I caught snippets of conversations as I moved through the crowd, someone talking about how beautiful the garden looked, another person reminiscing about birthdays from years past, and a few people laughing over an inside joke I didn't quite catch but could still enjoy from the sound alone. It was the kind of atmosphere where you could simply stand still for a moment and let it all wash over you, knowing you were surrounded by love and joy. Everywhere I turned there were familiar faces lighting up with smiles, the kind of smiles that showed they were just as happy to be here as we were to have them. There was no rush, no hurry to get through the day. It felt like everyone had agreed, silently, to take their time, to savor each moment before it passed. And standing there, with the balloons swaying above, the music wrapping softly around the laughter, and the garden bathed in the glow of togetherness, I realized this was the kind of scene you didn't just remember. You carried it with you forever. The moment my eyes landed on the buffet table, I couldn't help but smile. It stretched along one side of the garden like a colorful invitation, overflowing with the kind of treats that made you feel like a child again. The crisp white tablecloth seemed to make every color pop. The soft golden bread of the sandwiches, the pastel swirls of frosting on the cupcakes, the glistening reds and greens of sliced fruit in glass bowls. There was something for everyone, and the sight alone was enough to make you forget any plans of eating politely. The sandwiches were neatly arranged on tiered stands, each one cut into perfect little triangles. Some were filled with creamy egg salad, others with crisp lettuce and slices of tomato tucked neatly under cheese. The smell of freshly baked bread drifted up every time someone reached for one, mingling with the aroma of the savory fillings. I watched as people took small plates and carefully chose their favorites, some adding just one or two, others building a small tower before moving on to see what else was waiting. Then there were the cupcakes, each one sitting proudly in its own paper case, topped with generous swirls of frosting. Some were decorated with tiny edible pearls, others with sprinkles that caught the sunlight like little jewels. The scent of vanilla and chocolate drifted in the air, tempting even those who insisted they weren't in the mood for something sweet. Every so often, someone would take a bite and their face would light up, the kind of expression that told you everything you needed to know without a single word being spoken. Bowls of crisps sat along the table too, each one a different flavor. Some were light and salty, others rich with the tang of cheese or the smoky taste of barbecue. The soft crunching sound seemed to punctuate conversations, and there was something about the way people casually reached for them that made the whole scene feel warm and familiar. The drinks were just as inviting, lined up in tall glass dispensers and bottles that glistened in the sun. There was fresh lemonade with slices of lemon and sprigs of mint floating lazily on the surface, fizzy sodas in every color, and even sparkling water for those who preferred something lighter. Glasses clinked as they were filled, ice cubes tumbling in with a satisfying sound before the liquid followed. The coolness of the drinks was a welcome relief from the gentle warmth of the afternoon. Every time I glanced over, there was movement, someone pouring a drink, another person leaning over the table to reach a particular cupcake, a group laughing together as they tried to decide what to choose next. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the way it brought people together. Strangers found themselves talking over the table, sharing recommendations or passing along a plate. Friends paused between bites to share a story or take a photo, capturing both the spread and the moment. Even the small details added to the charm. The napkins were folded in neat little stacks, each one printed with tiny gold stars. There were little labels for the food, handwritten in neat, looping letters. The entire buff, it seemed like it had been prepared with love and thought, not just to feed people, but to make them feel welcomed and celebrated. And as I stood there, plate in hand, looking at the bright mix of colors, the laughter, and the easy conversations flowing around the table, I realized this wasn't just a buffet. It was another part of the celebration's heart. The moment my eyes landed on the buffet table, I couldn't help but smile. It stretched along one side of the garden like a colorful invitation, overflowing with the kind of treats that made you feel like a child again. The crisp white tablecloth seemed to make every color pop. The soft golden bread of the sandwiches, the pastel swirls of frosting on the cupcakes, the glistening reds and greens of sliced fruit in glass bowls. There was something for everyone, and the sight alone was enough to make you forget any plans of eating politely. The sandwiches were neatly arranged on tiered stands, each one cut into perfect little triangles. Some were filled with creamy egg salad, others with crisp lettuce and slices of tomato tucked neatly under cheese. The smell of freshly baked bread drifted up every time someone reached for one, mingling with the aroma of the savory fillings. I watched as people took small plates and carefully chose their favorites, some adding just one or two, others building a small tower before moving on to see what else was waiting. Then there were the cupcakes, each one sitting proudly in its own paper case, topped with generous swirls of frosting. Some were decorated with tiny edible pearls, others with sprinkles that caught the sunlight like little jewels. The scent of vanilla and chocolate drifted in the air, tempting even those who insisted they weren't in the mood for something sweet. Every so often, someone would take a bite and their face would light up, the kind of expression that told you everything you needed to know without a single word being spoken. Bowls of crisps sat along the table too, each one a different flavor. Some were light and salty, others rich with the tang of cheese or the smoky taste of barbecue. The soft crunching sound seemed to punctuate conversations, and there was something about the way people casually reached for them that made the whole scene feel warm and familiar. The drinks were just as inviting, lined up in tall glass dispensers and bottles that glistened in the sun. There was fresh lemonade with slices of lemon and sprigs of mint floating lazily on the surface, fizzy sodas in every color, and even sparkling water for those who preferred something lighter. Glasses clinked as they were filled, ice cubes tumbling in with a satisfying sound before the liquid followed. The coolness of the drinks was a welcome relief from the gentle warmth of the afternoon. Every time I glanced over, there was movement, someone pouring a drink, another person leaning over the table to reach a particular cupcake, a group laughing together as they tried to decide what to choose next. It wasn't just about the food, it was about the way it brought people together. Strangers found themselves talking over the table, sharing recommendations or passing along a plate. Friends paused between bites to share a story or take a photo, capturing both the spread and the moment. Even the small details added to the charm. The napkins were folded in neat little stacks, each one printed with tiny gold stars. There were little labels for the food, handwritten in neat looping letters. The entire buffet seemed like it had been prepared with love and thought, not just to feed people, but to make them feel welcomed and celebrated. And as I stood there, plate in hand, looking at the bright mix of colors, the laughter, and the easy conversations flowing around the table, I realized this wasn't just a buffet. It was another part of the celebration's heart. The evening had already been full of laughter, music, and the soft glow of lanterns, but there was a shift in the air that made everyone pause. Conversation slowed, and a quiet ripple of curiosity moved through the crowd. The garden lights dimmed just enough to make the sky above seem deeper, richer, like a canvas waiting for something extraordinary. People began to drift toward the open space, eyes lifting, whispers passing between them, the kind of whispers that hinted at excitement without giving anything away. Then, without warning, the first burst of light shot upward, breaking through the darkness with a sharp crack before blooming into a brilliant flower of color. Gasps and cheers rose at the same time, and just like that, the sky became a stage. Streaks of gold and silver arched high above, shimmering before fading into soft trails of smoke. Each explosion painted a new shape, sometimes a star, sometimes a sparkling cascade, sometimes just a blinding flash that left an afterimage dancing in your eyes. The rhythm of the fireworks seemed almost like music, each burst arriving in perfect time with the next. There were quick, playful pops that scattered tiny points of light across the sky, followed by slow, grand blooms that hung for a moment before drifting away. Some crackled like embers in a fire, others fizzled softly, as if whispering before vanishing. The colors shifted from deep reds to electric blues, from warm golds to shimmering greens, and every change drew another wave of awe from the crowd. I could hear the reactions around me, children laughing and clapping their hands, friends pointing and calling out to each other, cameras and phones clicking as people tried to capture the moment. But no picture could truly hold the magic of standing there, feeling the faint vibration in the ground with every launch, smelling the faint tang of smoke mixing with the evening air, and watching the darkness come alive. The fireworks reflected in people's eyes, giving everyone the same sparkle, as if the celebration was now not just in the garden, but inside each person watching. For a few minutes, the world felt suspended. There were no other thoughts, no past to look back on, no future to worry about, just the colors, the light, and the shared joy of being part of something beautiful. The show built slowly, each round more dazzling than the last. Just when it seemed it had reached its peak, there would be another sudden eruption of light, brighter and louder than before. The finale came all at once, a rush of rockets shooting into the sky, exploding in a storm of color so intense it felt like daylight had returned for a brief moment. The noise was thunderous, the light so bright it illuminated the faces of everyone in the garden, and for that instant the celebration was in the air, on the ground, and in our hearts all at once. As the final sparks faded and the sky returned to its calm, starlit self, there was a moment of stillness before the cheers began again. People hugged, clapped, and smiled at each other as if they had just shared a secret only they would understand. The smell of smoke lingered, and tiny wisps still floated upward like the last sighs of the evening's magic. And standing there, with the echoes still in my ears and the colors still in my mind, I knew the night had given us a memory we would carry forever. The music softened, and a gentle hush spread through the garden as someone rolled out the big birthday cake. It was impossible not to stare at it, 3 tiers tall, covered in smooth icing that glistened under the warm glow of the lights. Delicate patterns of flowers and swirls were piped along the sides, and right at the top sat the number 21, shimmering in gold. The sweet scent of vanilla and sugar drifted through the air, drawing everyone closer. We stood side by side, watching as the candles were lit one by one. Their small flames flickered in the evening breeze, casting a warm glow on the faces around us. Friends and family gathered in a circle, their voices beginning to rise in the familiar tune of Happy Birthday. The melody wrapped around us like a blanket, every note carrying love, joy, and the shared history of all the birthdays before this one. As the song came to an end, we leaned slightly toward each other, exchanging a small smile. The kind of smile that needed no words. It held memories of childhood parties, moments of laughter, and all the years we'd walked side by side. Closing our eyes, we took a deep breath and made our wish together. It wasn't spoken aloud, but I knew in my heart it was something that connected us more deeply than anything else could. With one steady breath, we blew out the candles, watching the smoke curl and twist upward into the night air. The crowd erupted into cheers and applause, clapping and laughing, their happiness echoing against the garden walls. Somewhere in that moment, with the soft haze of candle smoke and the lingering warmth of the song still in the air, I realized this was more than just cutting a cake. It was marking a chapter in our lives. A large knife was placed in our hands, its handle cool against my fingers. We wrapped our hands around it together, guiding the blade toward the cake. The icing gave way with a gentle resistance, and the first slice revealed the soft, fluffy layers inside. A few more cuts and the cake was ready to be shared, each piece carefully placed on plates and passed into waiting hands. Laughter bubbled up as people took their first bites, some closing their eyes in appreciation of the rich, sweet flavor. Children stood on tiptoe to see if they could get a slice with extra icing, while others leaned in to compliment the design before it was gone piece by piece. The table quickly became a flurry of movement, plates being passed, forks tapping softly, and conversations starting up again over the shared joy of something delicious. I took a bite myself, letting the sweetness melt slowly, and glanced around at the faces lit by the soft garden lights. There was something beautiful about the way this moment seemed to gather everyone closer, as though the cake wasn't just food. It was a bridge, a reason to linger together just a little longer. The laughter grew louder, the chatter warmer, and the evening seemed to wrap itself around us like a memory being woven right there in real time. And as the last slices disappeared and the circle of friends and family slowly began to spread out again, I felt the deep, quiet satisfaction of knowing that this simple act, making a wish and cutting a cake, had sealed the night in our hearts. And that brings us to the end of this special celebration. From the quiet, excited moments of the morning to the last slice of cake being shared, we've lived every part of this unforgettable 21st birthday with the twins. We've seen the garden filled with smiles, tasted the treats from the buffet, felt the thrill of the fireworks lighting up the night sky, and shared in the simple magic of making a wish together. I hope you enjoyed this journey as much as I enjoyed telling it. These little moments, the laughter, the colors, the sounds, are what make stories stay with us long after they end. And as always, I hope it helped you practice your English, learn some new words, and feel a little closer to British culture. Thank you for joining me here on the Brit Tales. Until next time, keep listening, keep learning, and keep enjoying the beauty of stories. Goodbye for now.